things that we're going to look at here in just a few minutes. But Raz, just let us know if there's any issues with audio or anything like that. Let us know there, since you can be a an ear listening on the outside for us.
Everything is good to go. The picture clarity is crystal clear, and so is the sound.
Sounds great. So I'll give myself a little bit of introduction about myself, and then I'll do the same thing for Patrick before we get started here. So I'm one of the senior solution architects and one of the managing partners at Dynamic Consultants Group. I have about 18 years of experience in the technology and consulting industry, specifically banking, manufacturing, sports and entertainment, industries like that. I've got about 15 years of software as a service, platform as a service experience in consulting and sales, worked for a variety of partners in ERP, CRM products. I've also worked with SAP, Salesforce, and then most recently, Microsoft Dynamics. And then a little fun fact about me, I'm also a certified marriage and family counselor. For some of you that have met me before, you've probably heard these slide items on some of the previous sessions that I've done, but certainly I'd love to be a part of this community. You guys do an awesome job, Raz, about kind of programming everything, getting everything right, making sure that everything is going off quite well. So we appreciate your involvement very much. And feel free to get a hold of me. My contact information is down there in the bottom left-hand corner. Would love to follow you on LinkedIn, follow me on Twitter, and email me anything you ever need. I'm here for you, here to help. And then also at the end of the session, we're going to be giving away some Surface earbuds. So it is for those that registered using our DCG Rocks 2021 promo code, or there's going to be an opportunity for you to enter to win at the very end of the session as well. So stay tuned for that. We'll show you how you put your name in for that chance to win the earbuds. So those are pretty cool. So enough about me. Let me tell you a little bit about Patrick. So Patrick's on the call with me as well. And Patrick has about 6 years working with Dynamic Consultants Group. He is one of our principal architects. He's also a team lead, and he's one of our lead Power Platform developers that we have. And I've brought Patrick along because he can show us the guts of some of these things that we're going to look at today as it relates to creating some notifications. But before he came to work for DCG, Patrick has a little bit of a different background. He actually started in inventory and warehouse optimization, more on the manufacturing side of things, specifically around scheduling, planning, inventory planning, transportation management. And he was also a commodity buyer for, I think, the wheat industry for a while. So he has a lot of supply chain manufacturing experience, as well as demand planning, forecasting. And then before that, Patrick actually was a teacher as well. So he's got quite an eclectic background there before he started with DCG. So Patrick, we're glad to have you helping out with this one. So a little bit about Dynamic Consultants Group. We're a global partner-to-partner consulting firm. So we are really focused on not necessarily building our brand, but building our partners' brands. So if you're a partner out there, or if you need resources for any of your projects in CRM, ERP, pretty much anything Microsoft, we're happy to help you with that. We've got about 500 plus CRM and ERP implementations around the globe, 70 plus million in partner generated revenue. So we can really help partners to be able to grow their staff. We have partners in North America, Europe, and Africa. We also have onshore and nearshore resourcing in North America and EMEA. And we have offices in California, Missouri, Texas, Belgrade, Hyderabad, and then one coming soon in EMEA. So we're excited about that opportunity as well. Another thing we've been talking about in the last couple of sessions, and before long it won't be an announcement anymore, everyone will just know about it, but we've also at Dynamic Consultants Group launched something that we call PowerLearn Academy. So PowerLearn Academy is a career change program for young adults, focused 100% on Microsoft technologies. So we basically take students that want to change careers, they want to get out of the world of retail or construction or manufacturing, and they want to get into technology. Maybe they don't have a degree that they have, maybe they've never went to university for software development or anything else, but they want to break into that world. So we want to create citizen developers here. And so we've got a 16-week boot camp that puts individuals through a program to learn all of the Microsoft stack. We use real world labs, client projects that we do real life simulations of what they're going to have. Patrick is actually one of our teachers of our plugins class. So Patrick teaches plugins for some of our students as a part of that program. So it's very exciting. We also offer internships after graduation to be able to place with some of our partners and some of our team members. So if you're looking to maybe hire somebody and you would like a PowerLearn student or a citizen developer to come work for you, let us know about that. Or also, if you know of someone who could be interested in changing their career and changing their life, please certainly let them know about PowerLearn Academy. We also have opportunities for our minorities in tech, veterans in tech, and our women in technology programs. So we want to give minority groups the ability to change their career path in a way that's outside of the traditional university program. So we're excited about this program. We're really glad to be able to make a difference in the lives of students and partners. So with that, let's talk a little bit about what we're here to present on today, and that is stop the emails. So we want to try to encourage everyone on the call today to really think outside the box when it comes to email notifications and a lot of the things that you would traditionally do in your systems to be able to kind of spur that collaboration. And I know that this session is all about collaboration. This event is all about collaboration, but really think about the ways that you're currently enabling notifications throughout systems. And this is what I want you to do. Everyone wants Dynamics 365 to give them alerts or to increase user adoption by having the system notify them about things, but just building a workflow or a Power Automate flow to send an email when something happens, that's not good enough. It may be a good solution in some instances, but for the most part, we're going to discuss some of those pros and cons and different methods for the way that you can do notifications. Things like email and Teams and SharePoint, third-party customizations, things like that about what are the best ways to achieve communication. But the foundation of this is everybody wants to be reminded about something, but sometimes things work better than others. It's so common in our industry to have a request that someone wants to know when a new lead comes into the system, when a new opportunity is won. Maybe the sales team wants a notification when an opportunity is closed, when a document is signed. As an example, like when a critical customer service case is logged, maybe we want to notify people. Work order escalations, inventory notifications, maybe when inventory reaches a certain level, you want to be notified about that in the system. But there are some things that work and things that don't about notifications. The biggest thing is we know that email does not work. And it does not work as a way to notify people. Email poses several issues that I think we have to think about when we're designing these systems. The most important issue that email presents is that people just aren't reading them. Email open rates are continually declining. Over 80% of all emails that are outside of your organization never even get opened. 80% of emails. And even inside of your company, 52% of company emails never get opened. And that's not even counting the ones that are going to junk, that are people are creating rules for to put inside of folders. The needless things there that people do with email to just make it lost. Email get lost. It get lost in the noise, the clutter of all the junk that happens and all the communications that people are using in email. So we want to try to encourage you to get beyond email, to think differently about the way that you send people notifications in the system. So as another part of this is email is more than just wanting to know that something happened. It can be a call to action. So when there's a notification, it goes beyond just saying, hey, here's something that occurred in the system, but maybe you want to actually cause a next action to occur. And most system notifications with an email can't really do that very well. It can't do that next step. So maybe a new lead comes in. The next thing you want to do is you want to reach out to them. You want to send an email. You want to make a phone call. You want to do some of those things. It becomes really difficult with email to kind of take that next step and next action. And so there are some other ways to do it. So what are some of the best practices that you should consider when you're choosing a pattern for how you notify people? Well, I think first and foremost, we've already covered it. Don't send in bulk. Emails in bulk will never work. They'll end up going to junk. You'll end up creating folders that kind of just hold all of the junk and then it just gets deleted. Those things just don't work. So the other thing to think about is make sure your notifications are specific. that they're specific about what it is that you want to accomplish, whether it's for a new lead that's coming in, a customer service support case that gets opened, whatever it is, make sure that you're sending one notification with one purpose. So that way it will actually get paid attention to. The second thing is just watch the frequency. Sometimes you can create too much clutter, even when you're doing notifications the right way. If it's a Teams notification or SMS or push notifications, all of that are very important. But if you're sending it too frequent, it's still going to get ignored. You're going to have a lot of people that just tend to ignore your communications whenever it's too frequent. So even with notifications, watch that frequency. Don't be too often. You want to make sure that you're only notifying of key things that user may need to know about. And also, on top of that, make sure that they're relevant. Make sure they're relevant to the user. Don't just send blasts of notifications out to the whole company. Make sure you're targeting and personal with that user. Keep them professional. So positivity, not negativity in notifications, we found really helps people to read them more. So as an example, let's say you've got, like we do internally, we have a notification that goes out whenever somebody has not logged their time. So in those instances, if you create a time entry and you want to notify someone, instead of saying, hey, have you logged your time? Instead of saying, don't log your time or do log your time, make sure you're creating that message in a way that asks them a question. Do you have time that you need to log for the day? Whatever that type of notification is, make sure you're creating professional, positive notifications and you'll get more user reaction from them. As an example, a sales opportunity. Let's say as an example, you have a notification that sends out to a sales rep if they have an appointment on the calendar. After that appointment, maybe we send them a notification, say, hey, do you have any notes that need to be logged? Instead of put in your notes, it's do you have any notes that you need to log? That will help drive that user engagement with your notifications and actually get people to read them more often. The other thing you need to do is ask, how important is this notification? We have to only send notifications if they're important, because otherwise it just becomes too much, right? The frequency becomes too much. We have to send bulk, all of those types of things. They start to clash if we don't really gauge what the importance of the notification is, and only send them when they are absolutely important to the user. The other thing that you should ask is this just an alert, or do I need to have a next action? Because that's going to drive the way that you do it. We mentioned something like Teams or push notifications using a Canvas app, of which Patrick is going to show you some examples of that here in just a few minutes. But those types of things allow you to have that next action. You can take a Teams notification and you can really have a next step where they can use cards to be able to display what the next action is. The other thing you can do is using SMS, you can create links that kind of create next action. So you have to ask yourself the question, am I just letting them know? Or does this notification need to direct the user in a certain way to act on something? And I think depending on the answer to that question, you're going to design and build these a different way. The other thing you should do is make notifications direct and personalized. You can certainly have more generic notifications like, hey, there's a new web page or a blog post that's been posted. Maybe you send out notifications for that. But making them very specific to what a user's job role is and interacting with them as if you know them as a user will really help your notifications to have a lot more impact on the end user. But then also just allowing users to control their own notifications, giving them the option to turn off or on notifications, giving them the option to say, yes, I do want to get that notification that says when the sales report is available on Monday mornings or when my financials are available at the end of the month. That's a notification I want. But the notification about my upcoming appointments, maybe I don't want that one. So giving users the ability to control their notification settings or options allows them to subscribe to what it is that they want to get. And certainly there's a lot of opt-in features that you can start to implement with third-party tools like Click Dimensions or other products that are out there, but you can also build these things. You can build that logic into your flows or into your code to be able to say only notify when this setting is true for this user, and that will give a lot more personalization to what it is that you want from that user. And the more you can get personal, the more you can give them options, the more likely they are to read and react to those notifications that you're sending. So how are some of the companies that we're working with using notifications? I want to just give you some ideas, and hopefully this will help you think about some ways inside of your organization that you can start to implement notifications. So the easiest one is just an alert that something happened, right? A new lead has entered in the system, a new order, a new quote, whatever that is. So something happens in Power Platform, we then want to create an alert that something has occurred. That's one of the easy examples of how you can use alerts. But the other one is a little bit more advanced, and that is predictive action that something is getting ready to happen or it's about to occur. So as an example with that is we may have a customer churn predictive analytic that's out there that lets the sales AE know that there is a customer that's at risk. Maybe we have a critical support ticket that's got open with this customer and it has been open for too long, and now we're starting to see email activity with that customer that's starting to get negative. Those types of sentiment analysis that you can connect and use some of the tools that are in Power Platform already, you can start to look at that data and create alerts that are more proactive in nature, not just reactive to something that's happening. The easiest example of that I can think about is, as an example, when an activity has happened, maybe you then want to ask them the question if there's some notes that they want to enter and use those notifications to spur the next action. That is kind of that predictive part of it. The other way that companies are using notifications is to drive traffic into social or to web funnels. And this is thinking about more external notifications through a customer portal or something similar, where you want to then drive traffic into a new blog article, a video promo that maybe has just launched, a new product that's been launched, a case study that's been launched, something like that from a marketing standpoint that you just want to try to drive traffic to. You can use notifications to do that. Also, promotion of products and services. Maybe you're creating an upsell opportunity. You're offering some discounts. Those are ways that you can use those external notifications to really be able to push products and services from a membership standpoint. And depending on your type of business, I'm sure you can think about different ways that you can do that with promotions. The other part of this is just increasing engagement level of the user. Things like a link to a weekly report or to something that's happened in the system, like a new lead or new opportunity, a next action. This is going to increase every time they get a notification and they click on it or tap on it. That could then take them into the system to be able to use the system. So now someone who may not have logged in is going to be forced to log in to create that engagement with the system that maybe would not have been there before. So you can certainly use notifications to drive engagement level of users in the applications that you're building. Events or meeting notifications, we see this a lot. So webinars that are coming up, events that are coming up, all of those things can be used so you can notify someone of an upcoming webinar that they've subscribed to, maybe they've attended in the past, things like that, to be able to let them know about upcoming events or meetings. Also setting expectations of events that are coming later. So this is that whole proactive thing, right? You subscribed or registered for this event, maybe you would like this other one. Those types of actions can really increase the level of engagement that you're getting inside of notifications. Also, we've seen this a lot, the "you're not done yet" notification. So as an example, maybe the sales rep has not completed filling in all the fields on an opportunity. Maybe they haven't completed the case. Maybe they haven't actually saved the lead yet. Those types of notifications, the "you're not done yet," there's something left to do in the system. Maybe you've started the process on a page, but you have abandoned it. Those types of abandonment, you can create some notifications around it to be able to create expectation of you need to go back and finish something. That's a really good way to make sure you have complete data. And this is certainly not a data cleanliness session. We can have an entire working session on that, I'm sure. But that whole concept of data being incomplete and notifying someone that there's something left to be done is a great way to ensure data quality by using notifications to do it. And then, like we talked about earlier, next action. What's next? Proactive suggestions. Should you schedule a follow-up meeting? Do you need to log your activity? Do you have time that you need to log? Do you need to close out your timesheet? Those kind of questions will change your system from being one that users feel like they have to log into and use to being one that's actually helpful to them. And that's really a lot of times the difference between an adopted system and one that's not, is when you're more proactive about letting them know what needs to be done. So what types of notifications should you consider? And we're going to take a look at a few of these in just a minute. But push notifications, like using a Canvas app to create a push notification on a mobile device, that's a big deal. That is amazing new feature that came out, I guess it was about 6-8 months ago, something like that, maybe a little longer. But those push notifications in Canvas apps are a really nice way to be able to create engagement with your app. Teams messages, using action cards to be able to kind of create that next action. We'll look at an example of that as well. But that's a really cool way to be able to send out notifications. For those companies that are maybe not on Teams yet, you could use Slack. You could use workflow and some Power Automate flows to be able to create Slack messages. We're not going to show that one today because it's not quite as easy to work with as Teams inside of the platform, but we have built that in the past, and we're able to talk about that if you have a client that needs it specifically. And then also SMS and MMS, so text messaging. That's a really great way. Sometimes you'll get users that will read a text message that they will never see a push notification, or they won't look at Teams every day, but man, they'll respond to an SMS. And you can even do this in a way that maybe some things go through Teams, maybe some things are push notifications, some things that are urgent, maybe their text message or SMS. Those types of connections that you can use with Twilio and other products really help to drive engagement depending on what it is you actually want the user to do. So keeping in mind, we want to know what the outcome is that we want from the user, and then we pick the right channel or the right method of being able to communicate with that user by selecting either push notifications, team messages, Slack messages, or SMS, depending on what the need is. So with that, let's actually look at a few of these examples. So Patrick's going to walk through this with us. Patrick, I will stop sharing so that way you can. But Patrick's going to walk through some of these examples with us and actually show us some real world stuff here on Microsoft Teams as well as SMS and some other cool things. So Patrick, I will hand it over to you and let you take it away.
Sure. Before I start, though, Dustin, you probably recall this, and you didn't mention it, but 8 years ago, I was once a customer of DCG. Before I went to the dark side of IT, and I was doing planning for large, heavy equipment. We moved them all across the country, so we had a logistics wing. We had to prep these machines before they went out. So we had an operations wing, and then we had the customers, of course, that were using the equipment on site. So we had tons of notifications when people were done with the equipment, when the operators were done with the equipment, when it was picked up, when it was dropped off. And they were all, different levels of calls to action. But I remember Dustin trying to solve the same problem 8 years ago, saying, what if we took all the emails away and we put in a feed? Do you remember what I asked you, Dustin?
I do, yeah.
Can it give me an email to tell me to look at it? And that it kind of defeated the purpose. But this is one of those things that we, in the operations side as well as in the IT side, have been trying to solve for a long time. There's no right answer, of course, but it kind of depends exactly what Dustin was talking about. What notifications fit what type of action is needed next. And I'll agree with you, Dustin. The black hole is the emails. Let's set up an email rule and we'll never see it again, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to take you through, hopefully we'll have enough time to dive in a little deeper here, but I'm going to take you through about 3 examples, Teams, text, and then the Power Apps app, which I think has the most potential. We can dive into that a little bit. And then how we think they fit in just from my operational experience and just how I feel that fit into that example that I just told you about in that company back in 2013 when Dustin and I were trying to build out this ERP, CRM, whatever it was back then. But whatever it was, it worked, Dustin. So I wish we had these tools back then. So let me share out.
In the Microsoft platform has just, it's been leaps and bounds over 8 years ago when we were trying to do this with just like the sales app and workflow and some of the other things that were there. But we can do so much more now, and this is pretty cool stuff.
That's right. So I don't want to bog down the examples here with anything complicated, such as heavy equipment and moving it across the country. So we're going to take the easiest of easy CRM examples and say, okay, qualifying a lead, right? That's everybody knows that. That's the base CRM example. So the first one I'm going to go through is really using Teams. And if I am showing my phone screen, everyone can see, correct? I didn't stop to ask that.
I can see it, Patrick. I think you're
okay,
good.
Great. I've muted everything I know about. It's my wife's first day of school, my kid's first day of school. So if anything comes up, I apologize. Hopefully we can, we can edit the video later. However, so the first thing example I would think about, so email, it's gone, right? It's going to go to the email. Your folks may or may not look at it. You don't know. So what if you're in a planning situation where you're sitting down, your day to day is, I'm going to plan the long term, but when an event happens, like Dustin brought up earlier, I need to take immediate action on it. So when that machine is ready to move, I either need to release it to be shipped or I need to change the schedule, something like that. So that's kind of where this would come in. I'm going to assign this lead, and there's going to be a flow in the background that's going to do several things all at once, but we'll focus on the team side of this. So both the mobile, which is over here, and then I have my desktop app as well. I'll show you the benefits and the pitfalls of both of those here real quick. So if I come here and I want to assign this lead to Patrick, you do have to spell it right. I'll sign that out. And we'll let the hamsters run on their little wheels that in the flow world. And I should see some things start to come through here. There comes a notification there. And you can see right here on my phone screen, and I'll flip over to my other screen as well. Click that off. And here's my flow on my, Teams on my phone. So you see they're similar. So lead Millard Fillmore is a cold lead. Obviously, the phone has a little less real estate. There are some things you could do to format this a little bit better. But benefit of the phone, what you can see here is I am able to tap to call this person straight away from my phone if I'm using my phone. If I'm out in the field, I could also do the same if I were to tap on the email. I could send them a direct message. And so we also have these cards here, qualify and disqualify. Same for Power Automate in your desktop Teams app. I'm going to hide you, Dustin. We already looked at you enough today. Unfortunately, there is no link here for the name or email, but it is there for copy and paste. The other piece is that I am able to go ahead and click this to view the lead. That would take me directly to my Dynamics instance inside of my default browser, which unfortunately here is not set up for me, but you could click that, go straight to the lead to look at the information if you needed more than what was provided here. So I'm going to go ahead and just disqualify Millard because he's not one of our favorite presidents in history, but also it does allow us to. Yes,
just
sir?
One thing to point out is the more we can drive people into the mobile app and mobile apps in general, the more that they'll start engaging with it, right? Which is the downside to email, as we keep going back to. But the fact that we can get to Teams and Canvas apps and things like that on our phones, that's really what helps drive that engagement with a notification.
Absolutely. So I can enter a comment here, not interested, and I could submit that. And once that goes through,
I've never logged into Dynamics at this point. I mean,
correct.
I've never logged in. I've never looked at the lead. Maybe I just called them. It was a spam lead, whatever. It wasn't any good. I can disqualify it, never having logged into Dynamics.
That's right. And you can see the feedback we get from Teams. The flow does do its thing, disqualifies the lead. Let's double check, make sure that actually worked. Sure enough, it is set to lost. And again, as Dustin said, we've never interacted directly with Dynamics. It was all done backed by Power Automate on that flow. So I'll pause there. If there's any questions, we can dig into the the actual flow itself, and then to the other options that we have there.
And I am monitoring the chat, so if anybody has any questions at all you want to post in the chat, we can certainly talk a little bit with Patrick about some of those. And Patrick, I'll try to vocalize any of those questions that come in. But yeah, I am anxious to see a little bit about the way this is working in Power Automate.
Sure. So I do want to mention that this is I'll call it a no-code solution. There's actually, I think, one formula that when we get the Canvas app that we use for auto navigation, which we'll show you. But one line of code, anybody can do this. This didn't take very long at all to put together. If you have any, and really, this doesn't even have to be backed by Dynamics. You could run this off of a spreadsheet if you really wanted to. But with Dynamics as our backbone, we do have a Dataverse connector here set up. When we get something assigned, we capture the owner, we get the lead, and then we do these three things. And I have this all put in one, for ease of use, I have it put in one flow. Naturally, you would have different flows for different applications, or you would pass in some parameter that you would tell it which type of flow you would want to use. So in this case, we looked at, we got the lead from Dynamics. We have an action that's within Dynamics, a process there that we're going to call to qualify or disqualify depending on which card we send. Uh-oh, I lost my mirror. We can get that back just here in a minute. And we just have a message there. We send it off. And then when we get a response, we take the selected option. If we get a qualify, we perform that qualify action. And then we send a response, some feedback. If we disqualified, same thing. We disqualify, we perform that disqualify action. And then we send feedback to the user. I think the default is just, yep, no case matching, so we'll do nothing. Any questions there?
Fairly simple example of only having a couple options, but you could get as advanced with this as you want, or even get more guided with the user by saying, is it one of these two options? If yes, then maybe you share a couple of other options that they can select from. So guiding the user along in whatever that process is.
That's absolutely right. And that's a good point, Dustin. This could be, I mean, if you think about how bots work, right? This could actually become a mini bot in itself, where you could have branching logic and saying, if they answer this on this card, I'm going to send him feedback saying, okay, what would you like to do? So back to my scheduling. Okay, would you like to release this combine that's ready to this customer? Well, no, I need to make an adjustment. Okay, which customer would you like to send it to? And I can pick from there. And it could, the possibilities just go on and on from there. Again, we were trying to show the simplest of simple, but yeah, your mind can imagine as many as complex of a scenario. I mean, as far as anything, it fits fits that. But again, for this, I was for my scenario here, I was thinking, this is someone who might be at their desk, who might be a planner, who might be a customer service agent, who might be a logistics coordinator. They would get this flow in their desktop app. They would say, okay, yep, this is what I want to do. Go ahead, ship this guy, send it off, perform the next action. I'm going to get back to planning the rest of my day.
And Patrick, Mandela asked a question that was a good one. So that connector that you're using for Dynamics 365, is that a custom connector, or is that an out-of-the-box connector?
This is the Dataverse, out-of-the-box Dataverse connector. Current environment. What used to be the current environment, Dynamics 365. Yeah.
So that's really anything that's in Dataverse we can connect to using that connector.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, good question, Mandela. Patrick, let's take a look at the next example.
Sure.
I think the next one was the text messaging, right?
That's right. That's right. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we'll go back to our leads. Yep. Go back to our leads here. We'll pick a better lead. How about George Washington, our first president? We'll go ahead and assign him. Spell my name right this time. And we should see several things happen after the hamsters roll. There's my Power Apps. We'll get to that in just a second. There's my George Washington lead on my teams. Sometimes Twilio just takes an extra minute.
So I was going to ask that question, Patrick.
There
Are
it
you
is.
using Twilio to actually send the
Yes.
text messages, right?
Correct. So we have a trial account set up with Twilio to demonstrate this functionality. Twilio, I'm not sure if they still are, but back when I was still in operations, Click Dimensions also uses Twilio as a backbone for their text messaging call and response. We could talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But what you see here, text, if we talk about scenarios, right? Text is probably the most invasive alert you can do. If you ever gotten a spam text message, is probably the most frustrating thing, even worse than a phone call, right? Because text messages are immediate action, calls to immediate action, right? So text messages, by far, be careful. They can be very helpful. They can be great for things out in the field. And actually, if you're thinking about things like IoT, they can actually receive SSMS messages and other things like that. Power Automate, we're not going to get into it today, but also has some IoT connectors. So again, we're not just talking about alerts. We're talking about alerts to things that aren't humans. So this really goes. This can get much wider than just here's an alternative to an email, right? So Twilio. Oh, go ahead.
Thinking about like system down type events, that would be where I would want to get a text message. I've got an entire system that's down, or in a critical support case that's been logged about a specific client, things like that. Maybe I would want a text message versus other things. Maybe you're just Teams or push notifications.
Yep. And so just taking a look at what we have here, again, we have the responsive links for the phone numbers and emails on the text message, which is great. If you have an iPhone or Android device, if you have a flip phone, not sure if that works or not. We also have these links, so qualified lead. One thing that we did try to do, these are ugly. We did try to run it through a bit.ly connector to shorten it, to make it nice and short and sweet. But one of the pitfalls we found with that was that when you process it to actually shorten the URL, it runs the command. So it was qualifying all our leads as it was trying to convert them. I'm sure there's other ways around it. Actually, I know there's other way around it. Using app services in small web pages, even Canvas apps. You could have a click to start. I was just thinking of that, Dustin, I had a brilliant thought right before we got on this demo. Is that maybe I should have put a Canvas app URL here that would have a nice little feedback, and it would just run my flow for me. So that's another idea, because when I click here in a moment, you'll just see it comes up with a blank screen. But to show you what it does, this is a separate flow that receives a webhook. And when you do that, let me just jump over to it. I think I have it here.
So, Patrick, this ties in nicely to Mandela asked another question. So does the user actually have to be signed in order for that action to happen? That's the beautiful thing about using the webhook and Power Automate is no, they wouldn't have to be, right?
Correct. And if you, if I sent you to a Power App, there may be, and that's a good point. It probably would have to be logged in either with the app or in that browser. So Azure App Services may be your best bet. Just have a quick web page to put on your to put there that then could call your flow for you. But those are nice to have things, right? This actually does the function. So here's the URL. You just copy that and paste it into your piece here. And it's just the same here. So it gets qualify or disqualify. And how does it know how to do that? Good question. If you look at this URL, it does have parameters in it. First thing you see is, well, after all the identifiers for the flow itself, you see a and lead ID. This is the identifier for the lead that we actually want to qualify or disqualify. And then finally, the last one, or the second to last one would be the action, which is qualify. And then for purposes of maybe logging or just understanding who's using what when, you have the source here, so we can log where did this come from? Is this a text? Did it come from the Teams message? Did it come from the email? Maybe as an IT organization, we're trying to figure out what's the best way our users, or what's the most common way our users interact with our system. Be a good way to do that. So that's how it knows what to do. It takes that action, says, hey, is this a qualify action? If it is, we'll qualify that lead. If it's not, we'll disqualify it. And I will show you that here. I'm going to click on, I'm going to tap on this here to send that, and it's going to take me to Chrome and send me to a blank page, which is less than ideal. Again, you could set this up to go to a Canvas app, which would go to your Power Apps app, which we'll show shortly. And then, or you could just do a custom web page to do that as well. And you see I get feedback from my Twilio. It says my lead was qualified. Let's go to Dynamics and make sure that actually happened. Sure enough, George Washington's ready to go. He's got himself a contact and an opportunity that's ready to be worked by the sales team.
Patrick and Mandela brings up a good point in some comments here. Like, obviously, if you're doing something that would be secured, you wouldn't want like your son to get a hold of your phone and accidentally qualify or disqualify a lead. Like, you really have to take into account, I think, what it is that you're wanting to do, because you may want that extra authentication step, or maybe like a two-factor thing where it sends you a text with a code that you would then have to input in order to confirm it, or at least a second step there of sign in. Just depending on what it is you're wanting to do, we wouldn't want to expose any of this to any sort of malicious or accidental type interaction.
Absolutely. And one other way that this works is there is a limited amount of time that the flow will stay open. So you can have you can set up time limits. Same with the Teams, where it'll only wait for as long as you tell it to. I think we had a 15-minute timeout on ours. So if it comes back and you could add those to your parameters to say, this was sent at X time, or some kind of indicator. If you don't get it back within a time you've changed your token or your timestamp as beyond a certain point, you could deny that request or do nothing, or send feedback and say, hey, this didn't work for whatever reason, for security reasons. Twilio, like I said earlier, also does allow you to send responses back. It's a little bit more complicated to receive those and then work with that within Flow. So I didn't get into that with this one, but that would also be another way. You could provide a code and then an action, and then have Flow parse that action, whatever text that you sent back. We'll throw up a red flag there when working with free text, especially from a phone. You are prone to typos or autocorrect. So do keep that in mind, which is why URLs here are probably your safest bet, also your more secure bet, but it's not the only bet you have. You can accept certain answers, like, text Y to accept, text in to do something else. You could text 1, 2, 3, and have Flow follow that logic, whatever it might be. So while, again, most invasive form, this is the I need to do this now. I need your attention immediately. And I'm giving you an option to do one of very few things that to move us forward, to keep the business moving while you're out and about, whether you're out in the field or at your desk, doesn't matter. We need you to act now.
I like text messaging. I think that has certainly got its own use case, but the Teams notification seems a little bit more actionable from within an organization. It gives you some of that security that we don't have to hand code or build a scenario around in order to do the SMS. But I'm anxious to see like a Canvas app. I would think that kind of gives us the best of both worlds, where we can kind of build anything we want in a Canvas app, but still do that.
Yeah, you're going to see me geek out here in a minute. This is what I live for, right? So, but before we do that, just looking at the SMS connector from Twilio, this is just so you have it. You always have the same from phone number once you set up your connection, and everything else is fair game. You're able to add whatever you need. You can format this in any way you like. Again, we tried to shorten these nasty URLs, but you may find something that works better for you. But it does work as designed here with this 15-minute build for the demo. Again, anybody could do this. This is no code, straight up citizen development.
I like that. And it's citizen development that actually can follow business process more than just technology, right? So you can really make this work for whatever business process that you're wanting to design. And that to me is really true citizen developery, where you can actually solve problems, not necessarily just build apps.
Yep. Yep. So for the money shot, and we're right on time, Dustin. This is great. I do want to show you this very quick app that we built. Maybe I mean threw this together really fast. Again, there's very little of anything. The only code we have is this line right here, and I'll show you what that does shortly. But this is literally the only code. It's looking for a parameter in our URL that we're going to send to Power Apps. And if we find it and it's true, we'll just navigate straight to that lead. So we'll see how that works here in just a moment. But outside of that, again, no code needed. And once we get into this, again, this is where you have the ultimate flexibility. I'm trying to, I'm already there. Ultimate flexibility on what you can do after the fact. Just think of what you can do in general with Power Apps. This could be, you know, as complicated to where I could, if I take that equipment example, okay, my machine's ready. No, I don't want to schedule it. Now I want to look at a Gantt chart of the whole schedule and figure out where's my best fit. And then I want to change these 3 things around. And then I want to release all 4 of these machines all at once. So infinitely complicated once we get into Canvas apps. I'm going to assign Thomas Jefferson so we can actually look at it and I can stop geeking out over here. Assign, okay, to user or team. That's me. Once again, you'll see a lot of action over here. I hope.
Patrick, Tabitha has a question too, just kind of around low code solutions and the use of switch statements and things like that inside of Power Automate. I think, Tabitha, the one thing to think about here is, you know, I think citizen developers and some of those novice users of Power Automate would probably find a different way to do it. Like they may use if else because it makes more sense to them because they don't know about a switch statement, something like that. But I think there is a part of, you know, the term citizen developer still has the word developer in it. And I think a lot of times we forget that. They're not just the citizens, they're also citizen developers. So you need somebody that understands logic, and that doesn't necessarily have to be the end consumer of the app or the product. I think it's finding that person in your organization whose brain is wired around logic, if, then, else, switch, and kind of can learn some of that stuff. Finding that individual in your organization that their brain's wired that way, they can very quickly come up to how to use these things and build things for your organization. So that's the first step. But then the second step is, I think you always want some kind of a partner or someone else inside of your organization or outside of your organization that can take things to the next level. Because you certainly want the citizen developers to be able to get to the point where they understand the business logic, they can build it. But there is kind of always that threshold where they may need someone who does it every single day, all day long. They may need a developer to get them to that next level and get the thing production ready. Something like the authentication, maybe they want to handle that. Something like the 2-factor authentication, you may need someone who is a more advanced Power Apps user or Power Automate developer to be able to do some of those things. So I don't think we necessarily say you will ever be able to get away from having developers in general, but the beauty behind it is it gives the power of design back to those that are using the apps. So you don't have developers designing things. Instead, most of the time the developers are building what the citizen developers have already architected or designed at a high level. So hopefully that answers your question, Tabitha. I understand exactly what you're saying there around accountants and those that are doing those sorts of things every day may not be able to pick up on some of these things as easily as others could.
Yeah, I will second that statement. The closer to the actual user of the app that can do the building, better off you're going to be.
And we're developers. We love building things, but sometimes there's that disconnect that we have to try to bridge that gap, and that's really where those citizen developers come in.
Yep. Okay, so
Patrick,
I'm gonna go.
take it away.
I'm gonna try and I hope this works. I might have to do a quick lead create here. I'm gonna tap this notification. It takes me over to Power Apps, and you can see that. Oh, there we go. Apparently, there's a new version of my app. Awesome. It took me directly to my lead, Thomas Jefferson, gave me its phone number. You'll notice here that the phone number and the email are not links. There may be a way to do that in Canvas apps, but with this quick demo, we did not go through that exercise. And again, we get the topic, and we have the qualify and disqualify buttons as well. And again, with the Canvas apps, sky is the limit. I could have multiple screens. I can have multiple options. I can have infinitely many routes for this to take. But for the sake of the demo and for the sake of time, we're going to run into Q&A here in just a moment. But I will just qualify this lead as a Canvas app. Oh, and I did want to show you that routing again. So yeah, when the lead was loaded, when I clicked on that, let's see if I can show you over here. Am I in the right? Yes, here we go. Send push notification. So this is just Power Apps push notification, Power Apps connector here. So I did a recipient, which is my R&D account here. It says my lead is assigned to you, and I have an open app, so I could open it in the browser. I open it in the app. That'd be great. I'm already authenticated because it's mine. It's part of my my Apple ID here. I passed in my lead ID and then the forward to detail true. And these parameters here, which is being consumed by the Power App, in both of these, yep, in the label here, which grabs it, and the timer, which tells it to go ahead and navigate directly to my leads. Otherwise, I just have a list of open leads here for me to sort through. So I'm gonna go ahead and qualify this lead. Click qualify. That should navigate me to a success screen if all goes well. I hope that new version doesn't clash with what I'm doing here, which is great. All right, I have success. I should be able to come back here to, yep, look at that. Thomas Jefferson's now qualified. So again, this was a simple, quick, fast, easy qualify lead scenario. But again, just thinking back in my operational experience, procurement, distribution, logistics, I could think of 1,000 ways that this could be implemented and could have made my life a lot easier had this been available several years ago. But hopefully this has sparked some questions and some ideas in your mind that you can go back to your clients or your current companies and solve problems along with alerting and actual business process, because this went beyond just alerts, Dustin. I hope you agree. This really goes to, okay, I'm telling you that something's happened and now we need to take action, and how we take action and how we make that action available is just as important as the notification itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Patrick. This is really cool. I think those three options unlock a lot of power for what we can do with some of these things for either simple or fairly complex scenarios. So I'm going to actually share my screen so that way we can get people registering for the giveaway. And then while we do, we have some time to take a few more questions if you would like to post those in the chat. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You guys should see a QR code here where you can scan that with your phone. Let me know once you see it, okay? So you can scan that QR code with your phone, and that's going to give you the ability to go to a little landing page. Don't pay any attention to the heading of the landing page or what it says. I think we reused this from a previous session. But if you scan that, enter your information, that will enter you to win, as well as anyone who registered using our promo code. But if you just scan it, this will give you the ability to register and win. We're going to do that giveaway tomorrow after the session is over, after the last session of the day is over. We're going to do those giveaways for the Surface EarPods or earbuds. So those are going to be really cool. If you haven't played around with the new Surface earbuds, those things are really neat. We're going to give that away tomorrow at the session, at the very end of the session. So one question we do have, Patrick, Tabitha has a question kind of related to that last one. What if you have a citizen developer who is building business logic and doing some of those things, but you have some more advanced needs like multi-factor authentication or some of the other components? Is there a way to modularize or templatize the more difficult parts of things, so that way a citizen developer could make use of it without actually having to go redo it or build it every time?
Sure. I think the webhook example that we used is another way that we could attack that. You can create flows that's only run when they're called, and you could use that HTTP connector within flow to call another flow that would do whatever it needs to do, and then send a response back. So whether that's getting a token or asking a user for some kind of identification, that's one way to do it. Canvas apps, obviously sky's the limit there. Canvas apps, there are PCF controls and libraries that we can use where you can bring those in and utilize those within any of your Canvas apps straight away. So they can create functionality just modular inside of your Canvas apps. Some of them even in your model-driven apps as well, depending on how they're built. But yeah, there's several ways to skin that cat. It really just depends on what types of interaction you need with Azure Active Directory, or is it just an external system? There's a lot of what ifs there, but totally doable for sure.
Kind of like the simple example of being able to say, okay, you have one flow that's for the developers, you have another flow that's for the business logic and the users to be able to make use of, and they're just calling and receiving responses from the other flow. Yep. I think that would be an easy way. You could probably get more advanced if you wanted to build something in as an app service or something else that does a lot more complex logic, writing to a SAP database or doing anything else. The other thing to point out is we were using Dynamics for all of our examples, but this could just as easily be a SharePoint list. It could be a SQL database. It could be an Excel spreadsheet. Pretty much anything that you wanted to trigger action on, you could do this exact same thing with. We're just using Dynamics because we wanted to make use of the full Power Platform stack here in our demos. So, well, I don't see any other questions right now. So, Patrick, thank you so much. I'll give everybody a couple more minutes if they want to scan this QR code. But with that, Raz, I don't know if you want to introduce our next speaker, if we're ready to go there. But thanks you so much for everyone for listening to us for a few minutes, and hopefully we've given you some good ideas to think about.
Thank you once again, Dustin and Patrick, for, again, a hands-on session, which always goes down very, very well. Everyone loves to see how things are made, and that's what you've exactly done today. So I think it's highly, highly valuable. So once again, thank you so much, Dustin and Patrick, joining us. From which state are you joining us from today?
I think I'm in Missouri. Patrick's from Kansas.
Wow, fantastic. So again, thank you from the USA. And for all the speakers around the world. So thank you once again, Dustin and Patrick.
Thanks, Raz, so much for having us.